Hello and welcome to another Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We are here this week talking about the Ascent Rugby Series. We are joined by Mitch McGahan, the head coach of RC Eemland. We bumped into each other on a couple of occasions at the Dutch games during the Rugby Europe Championships, and we kept in comms. Obviously, RC Eemland are being one of the founding teams to take part in the new Ascent Rugby Series. It kicks off on the 22nd over in Frankfurt, which then leads on to another multitude of games, which was only supposed to be 6 teams, but now there's a 7th team. So we've got an extra bit of bonus. We've got 2 Dutch clubs in there as well. RC Eemland are going to be there. Mitch, thanks for joining us, mate. Really appreciate your time.
No worries, man. Always good to catch up and have a chat.
So, RC Eemland then, obviously, for those that don't know who they are, what's their identity on and off the pitch? What would you hang your hat on? How do you want to play rugby?
Yeah, man. I suppose it's a club based in the middle of the Netherlands. Amersfoort's kind of right at the centre of the country. We've always had a strong youth base, so that's gradually starting to come through and produce more and more. And then obviously with its location and not too many clubs out east of the Netherlands that are playing at Eder class level, we tend to attract quite a few of the young aspiring talent to come through and join the RC Eemland ranks. Some of them doing it as early as 15, 16 and staying with us through. So yeah, very much a family oriented club. A lot of people once they join, they never leave, or they have constant connection with it. I'm probably living proof of that as well myself. But traditionally Eemland would have been over the last few years deemed as heavily forward oriented, quite an attritional game style. And over the last probably 6 to 12 months, that's started to change with some of these young kids that we've got coming through. So at the back end of last season, definitely made the change to what we had available to us because of injuries and things like that, and started to see a little bit more ball movement, a little bit more flair, a little bit more of a game style that reflected the player strengths that we had. And that's something that we're looking to build on for this coming season for sure.
Nice. So trying to change up the jumper to a little bit more free flowing. It seems to be coming across all of Netherlands rugby as well, though, because we've seen that obviously in the national side as well with the change. The results didn't go that way during the rec, but when it all clicked together in the last game against Germany, it was coast to coast, and yeah, it was great to see. Is that sort of becoming a bit more of an identity across the Netherlands, or is there still the old school up the jumper around most places?
No, I think it depends. I think if I have a look at the side that's taken out the last 2 years in Den Haag or Haagse Rugby Club, they've traditionally played that kind of. They've always had quite expansive backs and been able to move the ball. And depending on which region of the Netherlands you're in, kind of dictates a lot of kind of the players that you get and what style of rugby you get. And I think obviously we're under Lynn, the men's team opted for a kicking strategy to try and close the gap to a lot of teams, and almost a defensive type of mindset and minimize the mistakes, and got to within a game of potentially going to a World Cup qualifying tournament, but ultimately missed out. And then Brian coming in and myself and him being in charge and leading on the attack, wanted to play a little bit more open, a little bit more expansive, and try and back some of the talent that we've got. So I dare say it's going to come back to the fore, because there would be a lot of traditional rugby fans here in the Netherlands that say the Netherlands style is quite akin to the French and jouer. Probably not. We won't be going down that way or as open as maybe as that, but definitely want to see a lot more attacking rugby and backing some of the skill sets of some of the players that we're producing.
Nice. You sort of tipped it on there as well. So what is kind of the separation, depending on where you are in the Netherlands? Because I was speaking to, we had Keanu on from Indian Rugby as well, and he said different regions, like over sort of the East Coast, you got the bigger, stronger lads, and then you got down to the South, you got the smaller, quicker lads. How's it sort of divided up across the Netherlands? How does that sort of fit for the Eredivisie as well?
Yeah, I would say out towards, kind of the southwest region, you see a lot more ball movement. It's predominant within their academy. Phil Leck and his coach has been doing a really wonderful job, and prioritizing or trying to build on that style of rugby. And you see that a lot with their kids that are coming through, and it's reflected in the interclass teams. As I said, Harkes Rugby Club, been champions the last 2 years and have done that really, really well. With the talent that they produced. If you go up towards the northwest of the country, it's you probably get a little bit of a balance. They want to run, and you got some bigger heavy set boys there as well, so they can be quite destructive within their forward pack. In and around the middle of the country where we are, you get that balance depending on what you're getting from kind of the north and the east.
Yeah.
Where those type of players, you've got a lot more farmland, so you're getting a lot more kind of guys coming out of farm work and things like that coming into our teams in the middle East region of the country, and that reflects on a bit of a balanced game, probably tending towards more towards the forwards as opposed to out and out backs play. And as you head down the south, it really just depends on kind of the strength. You see it generationally, probably a few years ago, if I look at the Dukes in their pomp, 10, 15 years ago, they had a big, heavy forward pack and some exciting backs. They went away from that from a bit, and kind of the last couple of years have gone back to that. They've got a big old pack and some really, really good backs. So, again, it depends a lot on what you get coming through, but I would say that's generally how you would split the country up.
Nice. As you've tipped on there, the Dukes are obviously the second Dutch team that are taking part in the Ascent Rugby Series. Is there a little bit of needle between you guys? Is it sort of a target? Obviously, they got through to the final this year in the Eredivisie as well. They seem to be a club that's a little bit more mobile on socials and stuff, and probably seen a little bit more. Is there a focus for you guys to try and put one on them a little bit? Obviously.
Nah, look, I think, listen, Andy's an interesting character. He's had a lot of success there across his two different stints. Obviously, he's done well at Diok as well. And knowing him, he's a no holds barred. He wants to win everything, even if it is a festival tournament or a festival game. He'll want to make sure that he wins. But no, listen, they were outstanding last year. They only lost twice in the regular season, and they got pipped in the final as well by a very good Hague side. So they'll be looking to build. I'm sure, and they'll be using this as a way to catapult themselves into the season. They've got a number of guys who've done really well in Delta and the under-20s over the last couple of years into the national team. Obviously, Mace Foot, Sonny Sealau, players like that are kind of become staples of the national team, and those representative sides are there. So I expect them to have a strong showing in their two games. And obviously, we're there the week after Frankfurt and their host, and I'm sure they'll be wanting to put on a wonderful festival, which I know they will. The Dukes are renowned for throwing a really, really good party, and it will be a really good atmosphere that second week down there for sure.
Yes, I had the pleasure of meeting Andy as well at the in the rec. He stood in the crowd, was chatting away to him and stuff. And the Dukes have obviously, as you said, managed to recruit pretty well. They've obviously got meets over there as well, which is some international standard players, but they seem to have had a few move on as well. There's been a sort of a change in the guard. A couple of players have left, and I'm sure they've probably got some players waiting in the wings ready to take those shoes, though.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. They had a wonderful group last year. Some really good, of their own youth, local talent that's kind of come through over the last couple of years. I've worked with a number of them. They're all really, really good kids, and they supplemented that really well with some overseas investment. And like you said, I'm sure there's probably a couple. I know that they've announced a couple already, and I expect a couple more to pop up, and we'll be seeing them late August over these two Ascent Series games for sure.
Nice. How's your pre-season been going though? So obviously this is set, ready to go, launch pad into the new season. How's preps been going?
It's been good, mate. We've obviously the one thing that can be said with the Dutch season, it's attritional, it's long. 10 months you're kind of starting preseason sometimes mid-July and not finishing till the end of May. Obviously, there's a winter break in there, but there's still clubs training, and you still got players involved in the rec or Super Cup last year. So, for the players, it can be quite attritional. So we gave them a little bit more extra time off. The club last year, for the first time, had a lot of representation in those sides. So it's something new for the club to deal with. They gave the players a little bit more time off. We came back a couple of weeks ago and slowly been building up, and another 2 weeks worth of training into Frankfurt. So I know the boys are excited for sure. It's our first game is against Pogon, who the boys had a run out against in February. A mixed side between our futures and a couple of first team players. We know that Pogon will be a very, very strong side. A lot of Polish international players, and obviously they recruit really, really well. So be a really, really good test for us. The same the following week with us playing Tatra. One of the powerhouses of Czech rugby for a number of years.
Yeah, so obviously going against Pogon, they through a contact they did mention the scoreline that was they obviously got in February. Obviously, it wasn't documented. What was, as you said, you sort of split the teams, made sure you blooded some. What was their strong points? What's the bits that you've obviously come away from that knowing we need to probably target that? That was probably a bit. Was that planned? Was there an eye opener for this series happening, or was that just a fixture that happened and was ready and waiting?
To be fair, I think it kind of came out of the blue. I was busy with the men's team, so our assistant coaches and our director of rugby took over in leading the team that week. Our TD currently used to be the TD of Poland, so it had kind of had connections, and they were looking for a game. Obviously, as I said, a lot of Polish internationals within their setup, and they didn't have anything. They were on a winter break themselves and needed to get those guys a little bit of game time before they went away with the national team. And it's just something that fell into our laps. It definitely was an eye-opener for our younger guys. They stuck at it really, really well. They stayed in the fight. It's not easy going against some of these the size of that pack. And definitely their international experience was on show. So we'd have to be wary. They had a lot. Obviously, their forwards were outstanding, but a couple of really good back rows and a couple of really dangerous outside backs that we need to keep our eye on for sure.
The plan is to obviously try and exploit the gaps if and when they're created, rather than trying to go through them. You're not going to probably be trying to go for an arm wrestle.
No, that's it. No, for sure. It's something that we've got to develop. For us, it's as I said, it's a wonderful launching platform into the domestic season, and to be able to test yourself against opposition that you don't normally face, to give you different pictures and different scenarios. I've said to our boys, this will be probably one of the toughest preseasons that we've had as far as fixtures over the last few years, and it's not. This will be of the level I would expect of some of those battles that we normally have to try and get into the top four. So it'll be an interesting one. It's one that we've got to try and make sure that it'll be nice to win, but equally it's good to get game time into the players and be able for them to show their wares on a big stage.
Have you used this to replace some of your pre-season? Are these the only games leading into the season, or have you got other sort of games lined up as well to pack around it?
No, these will be it, man. I think, like I said, with the short turnaround time, that's because of the long domestic season. We've got to utilize it as best we can. And like I said, when there was an opportunity to join the Ascent series for the first time and be one of the founding teams and doing it, the excitement and the dedication that the guys have shown in getting this up and running and getting it off the ground, it was something that we felt as though we had to be a part of, not only to give our players the experience, but to try and grow something that can potentially lead into a dynamic cross-border competition that Central Europe's kind of crying out for.
How did the invite come about? Was it something you guys were made aware of? Because obviously, you and the Dukes have jumped in. Obviously, we've got Poland, we've got Czech also being represented. We've got the Germans with Frankfurt, and then Adler 15 as well. So, and then we've got the Belgian side as well. So it's a great mix across the borders within Central Europe. how did the call come out? Did just somebody drop an email out and then somebody caught it, or what was this been planned for a little while? How did you understand it all?
No, it was something that came across social media. Obviously, they'd done a really, really good job in starting to promote it. And I'd seen kind of the first couple of teams be announced, and reached out myself and had a conversation with them and just to see, would we be a team that they would be interested in admitting?
Yeah.
Spoke with our club. They saw it as a wonderful opportunity with the powers that be and things and gave us, kind of full power to try and jump on board and be a part of it. And, thankfully we were admitted. They saw the potential that we had. They liked what we were about and how we were doing things. And it's been really, really good and really, really exciting to see the plans come together.
Yeah, it'd be amazing to see how it grows as well. There was only supposed to be 6. Now there's 7 already with the additional. We had Mike Poppmeyer on, who's the new Germany head coach, and he was explaining about the Frankfurt setup, and then the Adler 15 there to be able to give the other teams chances to put players across and put himself in the shop window, because Frankfurt seemed to be the major dominant side, gone all season unbeaten as well, going into this tournament on their own backyard to start with as well is going to be a big one for anyone trying to put one on them to start with. But the lads that you've got going there, for those that are going to be watching and obviously trying to understand who's who within it, what's the lads to look out from your side?
Yeah, look, we've got a couple of new signings that have jumped on with us this year. We've recruited a couple of Kiwi boys in the back line, Toby Kennett and Weston Cobb, both very experienced characters, spent a season playing in the UK last year, and have got vast experience playing back home in the domestic comp and some Heartland Championship stuff. So, Toby operates as a 10-15. Weston can kind of cover off the centres, can also play 15. They'd be 2 that we're quite excited to see. And this will be their first kind of run out with us. So we're excited to see how they develop and how they gel with the boys. Obviously, we've got Keegan Weintraub as well at number 8 for us. It was outstanding last year. Obviously, South African, but with Austrian heritage, so he's able to stay another season. Really enjoyed his time and is committed to the club. One that we certainly has a nose for the try line. For a number 8, which is always a positive thing to have. So he'll definitely be one to watch. And the other one I'd say is young Finn Kelleher, 15, hit his traps in the back end of last season. Exciting talent. I've worked with Finn for a number of years, and it's good to see the growth and maturity in his game. And he's got a big season ahead of him. Pushing to be involved with the under-20s again as we build towards the European Championships in November. So I know that he'll be looking to hit the ground running in Frankfurt for sure.
Yeah, nice. So obviously the game plan out there, make sure that you obviously try and exploit those gaps with those new Kiwi lads as well. Is that changed anything from last season? Is there going to be a different way that you try to execute that with a slightly more advanced backline potentially, as you say?
Yeah, I suppose it's building on what we did in the back end of the season and finding consistency within it. What we saw with, as is the case with all young players and young teams, is that they can be really, really outstanding and almost be like a 9 or 10 out of 10 one week, and then the following week, it can be back around that 5-6 area. So it's building that consistency, and with the likes of Weston and Toby coming on board with that little bit more experience to be able to maybe temper some of the youthful exuberance that the guys would have, and making the right decisions in the right area and just building that consistency. I think that's the big thing that we're looking to try and see and try and develop this year. Like I said, we can blow teams away on a day and catch some teams by surprise, but equally there's been times where we struggle to show up and been rightly punished for our lack of execution.
Yeah, that must be the most frustrating part as well, probably because during that training week as well, probably everything went right, and when it comes to game time, everything went wrong.
Yeah, man, it can be like that, but hey, that's why we're involved in coaching, and that's footy, isn't it?
That's 100% it. So obviously, Pogon the first week, then you got Tatra the next. How have you scouted the two teams out? Obviously, I know you've played Pogon the in February, so you've got a bit of first-hand experience. Do you just get onto YouTube? Have you got an insider sending you information? How does that go? Because it's not, as we know, like these games aren't readily available on YouTube, etc., etc. There isn't a plethora of footage for you to just be snooping around and trying to get any clues of ideas. How does a coach do that without that availability?
Yeah, I suppose it's working your contact network and trying to find out what you can about them. With the work that you're doing and others like you, it's becoming a lot more accessible to be able to see that footage and see those teams or the games that they play in. Obviously, our experience with Super Cup as well, and a number of the Czech players that have been involved in Tatra, so we have an understanding and an idea of kind of what Czech rugby's about and what they're trying to develop. I've also got someone over there this week who's there for something else and just happens to be at Tatra as they'll be playing a preseason game. So one of my coaches will be taking notes for sure. So that's the secret plan for to trying to get as much information as we can. It fell into our lap, or it worked out that way that he was going to be there. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Just make sure you bring your notepad and tell me what you see. So no, it should be good. But like I said, at the end of the day, as much as we want to go into this with a plan, we've got to focus on ourselves and executing and making sure we get our own house in order. Because we've got a long season ahead of us. There's no good trying to tailor our game for these two, and it falls down. Within the domestic season, we've got to make sure that we're building and making sure we're launching into another long domestic season on a good note.
This is like the start of the series, so we get the two games to start with, then it rolls into February for another couple of games as well. Are you hosting one of the events as well? Is that the plan further down the line? How does that roll out?
Yeah, it's something that we said that we would be keen to do. The club are keen to do. Obviously, I'm sure that there are a number of the other clubs that are involved in the series will be putting their hand up. I think with Frankfurt probably being the main drivers behind the series, it makes sense for it to be the first one to be there. And I think Dukes were one of the next cabs off the rank in getting in, and it combines well with the Den Bosch Rugby Weekend that they host every year. It's just lined up perfectly for them to have this Ascent series kind of take over and be the star of the show on that weekend. It's something that we're definitely keen to do. February, March. Obviously, a lot of that depends on the weather in Central Europe, as with most places.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if the pitches are playable and we can make it work, listen, we're keen as mustard to host something for sure.
You guys have got proper grass pitch. It's properly old school with whereas when I come to the Amsterdam arena, it's.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know why that's not used more often, that stadium, because it is a great ground there, but it's great to see grass pitches for a change, because in Spain there's more and more of these Astro pitches, and my legs, I'm far too old for this shit for grass pitches. Grass pitches are perfect. Like, just keep it as that. How do you got? Because obviously I'm guessing it's going to be a similar situation in Holland, where you've got some grass, some Astro, depending on the areas, depending on the weather conditions, etc. I've asked this on a few occasions. How do you sort of translate that from probably training on a grass pitch to then playing on a Astro pitch? Because there's been a few clubs that obviously only play on 4G pitches, and then they've had to tailor their game to go and play on grass. Is that something you've got availability for an Astro pitch to go and sort of do a bit of training on if you've got a game lined up, or do you just, it's our gameplay, let's just make it happen?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I'd love for us to be able to chop and change. There's a few clubs that have got that capability of doing it within the ETA class. They've got a 4G pitch either as their main one and a grass one alongside, or they've got a grass one and then they've got a training pitch as well. It comes down a lot to the local council and luck of the draw, really. In the area that we're in, we're kind of we're petitioning our local government to to be able to give us better facilities. The club's coming into its 50th year. a massive celebration planned, and the idea was that we would break ground on our new clubhouse, and that's been stalled a little bit by the local government. We're a club that's got 500 members, 350 youth members, and trying to get all of those on two pitches isn't ideal, particularly with the Dutch summer at the moment, where there's not much grass growing going on. I can tell you that, and then with the Dutch winter as well, where it's wet and it can be freezing, and again, not much grass growing, and when you've got 350 kids and another 150 adults trying to use those facilities, it puts a strain on it for sure. And hopefully we can get access to have a third pitch where we would want to make it artificial, and be able to have that kind of use for the whole club throughout the winter months and the lean months, to be able to utilize it to its best, and making sure that we're saving our grass pitches, and then, as you said, potential for the senior team, that if we know that we've got a game on artificial grass coming up, we can spend a couple of weeks training there to get ourselves ready for it, and go from there. But fingers crossed that those talks can progress, and get us the facilities that we feel as a club that we now need.
Yeah, definitely. That's as you said, if you've got other teams in the same division that have got that flexibility, that's probably what takes that next step in between to fill that gap to the top of the division, doesn't it? Because training on one, and then I'm sure there's probably, have you had many sessions cancelled, games cancelled through the season due to the weather, or do you have it delayed? Like, it must really put a strain on the players with the league season being so long already, and then games put at risk due to the grass pitch, or having to potentially change it, like flip it to another schedule, and it don't help anyone, does it?
No, it doesn't. That's for sure. And we've had a number of weeks during the winter months where we've had to call off fields because they've been under snow. It's been frozen. It's not safe for the players. You don't, of course, you want to train, you want to get prepared for things, but at what cost? These are at best, kind of semi-professional, high-level amateur players. For them to go run around and potentially pick up an injury and miss work and have to take time off work and things like that, it's not fair to them. It's not what you want as well. Player welfare, player safety is going to come at the heart of all these decisions. I'd love to have a facility. We were over in Prague for the Euros last year, and I think we're at Sparta Prague training, and during the winter months they put up a big inflatable kind of cover, and they've got a full rugby pitch in there, and I was taking videos, sending it to our board, going, geez, this would be good, wouldn't it, lads? Few thumbs up, but I dare say
that's as far as it went.
I don't know. That's as far as it went. I think the pockets aren't deep enough to be able to do that. So that would be the ideal world. I've seen plenty of hockey clubs that have been able to do it over in the Netherlands, but hockey is probably number 2 to football in the country. So a lot more money, a lot more investment, and a lot more eyes on it to be able to get that and pay for those type of things. Whereas rugby's still growing, still developing, still an up and coming sport. So we've got to make do with what we've got.
It's definitely growing though in the Netherlands though. There seems to be a bit of momentum growing as well, similar across obviously Spain, etc., etc. It seems to be on the right trajectory as well. What's been the sort of the turning point within Dutch rugby to see? Because as you said, you've got a lot of youth on the books. There's a lot of clubs out there with loads of youth on the books as well. What was sort of the change? Because there seems to be a lot of young people put off playing rugby because of all the injuries and all the head cases, etc., etc. What seems to have been the reignition in Dutch rugby for youth, or has it always been the case the youth's been very well serviced, but they don't actually make it to senior rugby?
No, look, I think it's having the right people in the right areas and pushing it the right way. I first came over here in 2013 to play a couple of seasons before going away, and at that stage, I think the Dutch were kind of 50th in the world rankings. They were playing in European Conference 2C or something like that. They're playing the likes of Lithuania, Israel, and over the advent of Gareth Gilbert kind of being in charge of the men's team and technical director for a number of years, and the advent of the academy system. So we've got 6 regional academies within the country that service and try to upskill those players. Some of them offering 2-3 trainings a week on top of what they're doing at club. If I have a look at what we've got at our academy in the Mid-Oast at Ramo, we've got guys and we're fully integrated within the school. So we've got guys training, four times a week or 4 days a week at school,
Wow.
on top of doing their club season and regional rugby alongside of that. That's a mix of weights, that's a mix of mental sessions, video analysis, as well as being on field. So, a pretty outstanding setup and a pretty outstanding program that we've got. Within our region, and we've got 120 kids within our academy. So they would be playing at the local clubs within our region. So Eemland being one of them, Hoy being another one, Utrecht Rugby Club, and a couple of others as well, servicing that those academies. So the work that all of those academies are putting in and broadening that base and broadening the understanding of rugby and the players that we find are getting better and better every year. And certainly in the last 3 years, having come back into the country and seeing the good work and then the momentum building, won the Euros with the under-20s a couple of years ago. We've got a number of guys that are going over and trying to hand it in the Bucks Super Rugby competition. Obviously, Vickers, Max and Mikey probably been the big names that Cardiff met over the last couple of years. Obviously, they've moved on. There's a number at Leeds Beckett, still got a couple at Cardiff. And more of our younger lads been signed to French academies as well.
It's huge.
We've Nicky Dorenbell, who came through the 20s the last couple of years and come from Cass Rugby Club, making his debut for Clermont, the Champions Cup. The start of the year, you've got Tone Cast doing bits over at Breve, and then the massive Dutch contingent at Aurillac with Timmy, with Boris and Skip and Yun and the boys. So we're getting more and more of an eye on our talent coming through, and obviously their success is turning the attention of scouts and probably picking them up a little bit earlier and a lot more frequently, which is good for us, and hopefully we can get them released and making sure that they're available for us during the rec and the internationals that we have.
Yeah, that's the next conversation of trying to get them out of the espoirs and all of those other sort of French U systems, is trying to get them to be agreed to be released on the certain weekends, because that's not just Netherlands rugby that have got the problem. It's across the board. Obviously, the Spanish are trying to avoid some of that by centrally contracting a good wedge of their players. Is that something that the Netherlands have looked at doing, or is it a case of that's a few years off, or is that something that's already sort of in place? Or
yeah, look, I think with those ones, going to a World Cup helps to be able to do that, certainly for the likes of Spain and, Portugal. Having a strong domestic competition, we operated a 12-team domestic competition for me, and I've been a big advocate of this. I feel as though that's, a few too many. Rather than having more, I think less is more in our circumstances. And if we want to be able to grow and close that gap to the likes of Spain and Portugal and Romania, having an 8 or a 10-team competition, I think, is probably the way forward, and trying to make it semi-professional. So rather than having some of our best talent after they've been let go of espoirs at D2 or top 14 sides staying in France and playing Fed 1 or National 2 or things like that, having something for them domestically to come home to and actually try their hand at and, continue, kind of where they left off when they were in those espoirs programs or with it, certainly within D2 and top 14 programs, is having something that mimics that and is an attractive option for them. I think domestically the competition probably isn't quite there, and it's not the pull for our young talent to come back and be involved in. So definitely if we had the means to be able to set something up with the clubs and have it as a kind of semi-professional top tier competition, I think we would attract some of those guys back, and that would only help in building success for our national team and national programs and our push towards 2031.
Yeah, that's as you said, you're pretty lucky. There's a lot of the lads that are already within the system, already stayed within Netherlands as well. But the sort of the next tier is when the younger lads are getting picked up and scooped up and taken off on fancier contracts in the southern France and stuff like that. It's harder to control when at the minute the setup's there. But what's the main vision from the Ascent Rugby Series for Eemland? Is it obviously a case of a great alternative to a pre-season? Is the vision to go and win it? What is your riding emotion from it? And obviously with the fans hopefully travelling over to Frankfurt and down to the Bosch the week after, what they had to see.
Yeah, I suppose, like I said, with Ascent, it's to give our players an opportunity to get a taste of rugby that they probably don't or wouldn't get certainly at a club level. We've been lucky to have a few with Delta and have had, guys have had experience in maybe youth internationals or senior internationals, but to get that cross-border competition quite regularly, to have it 2 weeks on the spin is quite unique. Certainly for club rugby within the country. So that would be a big driver for us, and to offer our youth or to offer our players that whilst playing in a domestic competition is another incentive to try and keep them in country and not want to go and experience rugby somewhere else. They can stay at their home club, they can stay within the Netherlands and be able to play in these cross-border competitions. I think are massive, and as it develops, I'm sure. I'm not one that pitches up and wants to come second at anything. So, as it develops, I'm sure that the competitive juices will come out, and we want to win, and we want to put our best foot forward for sure. So, in year one, they've spoken about it being a festival format. Getting everyone together, sharing of ideas, bringing a bit of attention to it. And the series and the wonderful work that they're putting in, and who knows, year two may look like a full kind of dare I say it, kind of Heineken Cup type format that complements our domestic season, and we can work towards it, and from there, who knows, and if it gets to that, I'll be the first one saying, listen lads, we're not here to make up the numbers.
No, it'd be great to add more clubs to it, as you say, and have that wider appeal. The festival series seems amazing to see and to get started, but for you, as you said, to be able to add that into the mix of your current season as well and complement it and be able to have players blooded in against bigger teams and obviously carries over, that must really get the juices flowing from other Dutch clubs and other clubs around Central Europe, thinking this is our opportunity to become a standalone tournament, because as we all know, they're not getting in the Challenge Cup, you're not going to get into the Heineken Champions Cup, all of that sort of stuff, because it's all safeguarded now, it's all protected, it's just not going to happen, same as the Six Nations. So you kind of got to create your own platform, and I think they sort of looked at a potential Iberia Cup as well for the Portugal and Spain side of it. So I think a lot of nations are trying to take it into their own hands and their own destiny. It's just also you've got to find out how does it complement rather than hamper development as well. That's going to be the hardest bit to try and get in between, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the big thing that comes down to, we've seen many advents of the Benny Cup between Belgium and the Netherlands, and the domestic clubs being involved in that. Ultimately, it comes down to money. Money drives everything. If the money's there and there's people willing to spend it and invest it in making sure that this thing gets off the ground, or any type of new competition gets off the ground, generally it is a success. And the work that they've put in behind the scenes, and some of the people and sponsors and businesses that they've been able to attract in such a short time is quite exciting, and should be the envy probably of a lot of lot of national bodies that, a group of individuals could get together and be able to pull this off and pull in some of the people that they have been able to kind of give it coverage and give it legs. But it'd be great if we can get something like that. But, at the end of the day, in this climate, with the way rugby's going, it's going to come down to money and investment.
But as you say, as that's being spread across multiple nations, there's a bigger footprint, there's a bigger opportunity. And for anyone that's sat on the fence, anyone that's looking at outside in, just get involved, because I think this has got some big legs. I've got interviews lined up with the founders when I'm actually there in Frankfurt as well. Obviously, be chatting with a few different players, teams, and coaches, and also been roped into being co-coms on the Rugby Pass coverage. So I just really want to see this a massive success, as always. Like with everything that Rugby TTL do, it's a great bit. Every time I've come to meet with you guys, with the Dutch lads, and everyone's just been so welcoming, and it's just another one of those nations that once it clicks, it's just going to go tier upon tier. It's the same with Portugal, it's the same with Spain. Once it starts to click, it's going to be unstoppable. And I think, obviously, as you said, Brian's come in and added a new way of thinking for the younger lads, and that you'd obviously missed out on the World Cup, but it was a case of just go and enjoy yourself. Every time I spoke to everyone, it was like, okay, the results haven't gone, but we're out there just to learn how to play the way we want to play. And once it clicks, it clicks. That must be so exciting to be around as well.
No, for sure. Like I said, I've been lucky enough over the last few years to work with a lot of these kids coming through, with the 20s, and, obviously with Delta last year and leading that, as well as seeing them around the domestic scene. And, that was a big thing that we want to try and get across. And I think it started with Delta and what we did, and just, backing their talent and saying, listen, go out and play footy, we back yous. We know you got the talent. We'll give you some frameworks, give you support. You'll make mistakes, but that's fine. We want to see what you've got, and put your foot forward and show that you're ready for the next step. And that just carried on. That energy carried on with Brian coming in. He's enthusiastic. He's like me. He wants to see the ball move. He wants to play footy. He wants to see it. And the Dutch are wonderful athletes. We got some of the biggest humans on the planet come out of this country. They're athletically built for the game. We should be able to play, an exciting brand that represents kind of, and reflects the athletes that we're able to produce. I think it's trending that way. It's like you said, the results probably weren't there, and a couple of disappointments for sure. But even in the game against Spain, first one out the bat against the Rec, I think we caught them by surprise, just like we did a couple of weeks earlier in the Super Cup semi. And like we said, on the final day, it came together, and Germany were the unfortunate recipients on that day. But some of the tries that we scored across the park, and some of the attacking opportunities that we had, the boys showed what they can do, and showed the individual talent and collective talent that they've got, and hopefully we can build on that. Again, with the Rec in the February.
Awesome, Mitch. Really appreciate your time as always, mate. Can't wait to catch up and hopefully share a beer with you at the Ascent Rugby in a couple of weeks' time,
sure, mate.
So for everyone that hasn't got the tickets or can't go, obviously tickets are still available at theascentrugby.com. And also Rugby Pass have got it. And if you want to listen to my boring voice as always, I will be on co-coms, probably just chatting shit as always. So really appreciate your time. Everyone that's joined us, keep abreast of everything we're going to do. Hopefully we've got a couple more coming in this little mini series for the Ascent Rugby. But otherwise, enjoy yourself and catch you soon.